Welcome to our joint webinar here with Engaging Networks and Twilio. The webinar is constructed in two parts today. First, we're going to have Michael Sabat kicking off, giving about 10 to 15 minute overview of Twilio and some of the kind of best practices and really the more technical pieces of how getting things set up and getting going using Twilio works. And then he'll be available for my guess is some specific questions that we're going to get. If you do have questions, please use the Q&A function at the bottom. It's much easier to track there versus if they're just kind of in chat, they can sometimes get lost. I'll be working to give Michael questions during that time. And then we'll flip roles and I'll be doing a walkthrough of the SMS and MMS features inside the Engaging Networks product, give you an idea of what those all look like. And then we'll be available for questions at the end of that. So that is what we're doing today. By way of introductions, my name is Ben Childers. I'm the VP of Global Client Success at Engaging Networks. And I'm joined here today by Michael Sabat, who is a former Engaging Networks employee and is now over at Twilio and is an account executive over there. Michael, over to you.
Thank you. Hey, so thanks everyone for coming and great to have you and happy to kind of follow up if you have questions after this. Please reach out and we will take care of that. I realized I didn't put a slide about myself in here, but yeah, I've been doing text messaging with nonprofits since 2008. I was one of the early employees with Mobile Commons and there for about, I think, 8 years and yada, yada, yada. Went to, as they used to say, went to Engaging Networks. And then from there went to Twilio. And so we're going to talk about this sort of like unique sort of partnership in terms of how it works and kind of separate with your texting capabilities in Engaging Networks, like which company does which part of the work and how we each respectively help so that you guys can effectively, launch campaigns and communicate with supporters, donors, constituents, any stakeholder through Engaging Networks with text messaging. So the toughest question of this whole thing is what is Twilio? And I've worked here for 2.5 years. Still sometimes stumble when I try to explain it. But the thing to know from this slide, and we'll get more complex in a second, is we're just like a very large company that powers communications across the internet, right? So the way you might think of like an AWS or Azure or one of those companies as the compute layer of the internet, Twilio is really the engagement layer of the internet. And we're an absolutely huge company, like it says here, 10 million developers. So that's all the accounts and people that can log into Twilio. We have 275,000 organizations, a lot of businesses and a lot of nonprofits using Twilio, and we're working all across the globe. What does Twilio actually do? I sort of mentioned it earlier. We're sort of like the communications infrastructure layer for the internet. So what does that actually mean? This is a crazy slide, I understand, and just imagine having to be able to talk about all these things. I'll go very quickly. So kind of what we have that really no one else has is what we call our super network. So this is arrangements with the cell phone carriers and communications companies all throughout the globe. So if you need a phone number in America, a short code in America, great, easy, come to Twilio. We can make that happen. But if you need a phone number because you're working on humanitarian aid in Afghanistan and you need to be able to communicate with people there, that's also, you can come to Twilio and we will help you get connected anywhere in the globe. So the super network are these points of connection anywhere that you need to communicate with people. And that's at the very foundation layer of Twilio. Above that, we have our channel APIs, and this is sort of what we're most known for. The channel APIs are what power communications on these channels. And our customers for channel APIs are either technology companies or developers, builders, right? So for instance, we're looking here at SMS, voice, email, video, WhatsApp. Those are the main ones, and we can help you connect to the other channels listed here as well. But when a company like Engaging Networks wants to be able to have text messaging in their application, their web application, their software, they don't have to go to Verizon and to T-Mobile and to Orange in the UK and to Claro in Central America. They come to Twilio and can add SMS, voice, video, email to their products with one kind of simpler vendor. They don't need all these agreements with all these other providers. That's our channel APIs, and that's what we're most known for. For instance, if you ever call your Uber driver or get a text from your doctor, it's probably Twilio under the hood powering that message, but you would never know about it. And that's sort of the same experience your constituents are going to have. They're going to be hearing from you, whoever it might be, the organization, and they're not going to really know, Engaging Networks is behind it or Twilio is, the infrastructure powering it. So we have our channel APIs. Above that, we have segment CDP, and the channel APIs is what we're going to be talking about today, specifically SMS. But just as a quick overview, segment CDP is a data platform. So this helps get your data from anywhere, get it into a single place, the CDP, and then manage it into your data warehouse or into other CRM systems or something like that. So imagine you're a healthcare foundation. You want to do a grateful patient campaign. When someone leaves the hospital, that data is an Epic, but it's got to be protected via HIPAA and all these things. How do you get it into your donor database to be able to reach out, or into Engaging Networks to be able to send an email and ask if they'd like to become a grateful patient and make a donation? Well, there's a lot of data rules and orchestration that needs to happen. Segment can help with that and much, much more. At the very top layer, we have our applications. Really the one to know that kind of isn't covered here is Twilio Flex. This is a fully programmable contact center. So if you have people calling in, if you have people chatting in or texting in, more of like a service or like a customer service type use case. And we do have a few Engaging Networks customers that are actually talking to us about this, but it's not necessarily like for donors and things like that. It might be for other use cases. You can imagine like a navigator scenario for health-based nonprofits and things like that. All right, that was the quick overview, very complex. Thanks for sticking with us there. When we talk about how we're working with Engaging Networks, the quick high overview is that Engaging Networks is adding text message capabilities to their software, to their product, and Ben will expand on that. And Twilio is the channel partner in this. So when you think about what's happening here, Engaging Networks is going to manage who is being text messaged, what the message says, when it's sent, all of the kind of like logic, and that, think of them as like the brain of your text messaging campaigns. Twilio is the channel partner. We're bringing the ability to deliver that message. So it's kind of, it gets complex, but from a high level, it's very simple what we do, although there are going to be a lot of specifics to get into. And that's why I have a job instead of just, APIs available. So when I say Twilio brings the channel to this interaction, that means we bring phone numbers. So you'll get your phone number with Twilio, whether that's in the US or virtually any country in the world where you want to be sending and receiving messages. Twilio handles the deliverability and receipt of messages. So essentially, Engaging Networks will have the group, it'll have the message. When you click send there or whatever similar button, they will tell the Twilio API, send this message to this phone number from this phone number. And Twilio receives that. We take it, we make sure it works, we get it to the carriers, and we make sure it's sent, right? Going the other direction, if that user replies to the text message, we receive that message, and then we deliver it to wherever Engaging Networks has told us to deliver that message to. Twilio will help answer questions and support on phone numbers, the setup, the procurement, the compliance of phone numbers, and any support issues with deliverability and things like that. That's where Twilio comes into play. And conversely, when you want to know about functionality, how does this work? How do I do it in the Engaging Networks platform? That's what Ben and his teams will be covering, right? And he'll be talking about it soon. One thing, there's so many little things to remember. I put it in this slide. I guess I could have done a separate slide with all the tips and tricks sort of thing. But one important thing here that we want to make sure doesn't get lost in, anywhere, is that text messages are 160 characters long, right? So just when we're talking about the mechanics of how text messaging works, etc., text messages are 160 characters long. That's always something to think about, right? And with Twilio, you'll be charged per message segment, right? Which is each chunk of 160 characters is a message segment. And so you want to think about that. It's not like an email where it can be as long as you want it to be. Text messages, 160 characters, and that's how things are sort of billed, right? So just something to keep in mind. It's going to look fine on the phone if you send something longer than that. Generally, if people have a smartphone, right, it'll look fine, but you still want to think about that. Also, I'm going to go back one slide just to be fun here. And with this setup, right? And this is, I guess I didn't say it, but we should. With the setup to use Engaging Networks text messaging features, you'll have your Engaging Network setup, right? You'll separately come to Twilio and get a Twilio account and set that up, and then connect your Twilio account to your Engaging Networks account. And you'll have your agreement with Engaging Networks, however that works, and then you'll have your relationship, your setup, your bill essentially with Twilio based on how many phone numbers you're getting, how many messages you're sending, your level of support you want, and things like that. So just this overall partnership, it's not like a nested thing. So you'll have an arrangement with Engaging Networks. You'll also have an arrangement with Twilio. We'll talk a little more about that at the end. And I guess I could have left it, but why not get into it there? All right. Again, more slides with a lot of information. It's kind of how it works when you're an infrastructure company like Twilio. These are your phone number options in the US, and totally happy to handle specific questions here. Generally, there are 3 types of phone numbers in the US. In other countries, there may be more or less, right? And we can get into any of those details as needed. But in the United States, you have short codes. Those are 5 or 6-digit numbers specifically designed for text messaging and for volume campaigns. Short codes are fairly expensive and they take a while to set up. It has been kind of just the way we started at Mobile Commons. It has been the way that most organizations do text message campaigns. Most nonprofits do it. Moving, into 2023, it becomes more of a question if you want a short code or would rather use other senders. And these are things we can have, specific discussions about. But short codes, kind of expensive. I think they start at Twilio at about $1,000 a month. They take a while to set up, but it has the best delivery and very high deliverability speeds. In the middle here, we have toll-free numbers. Toll-free numbers are very inexpensive, a few dollars a month. And they start with like a okay throughput, depending on how many people you want to text, how fast. But you can adjust to get your throughput increased with a toll-free number. And so you can go from starting at, I think, 3 messages per second at Twilio when you buy a normal toll-free, and you can increase that by 25 message per second increments. When we say message per second, we mean segments per second, just so you know. So a huge text message takes a little longer to get through than one that's short. Last but not least are long code 10DLC. So think about this. These all mean the same thing. Local numbers, so with a local area code. Long codes means the same thing. 10DLC, all of those mean the same thing. And that's just like a regular phone number like you might have on your cell phone or your landline. These have changed a lot recently, and it's a very dynamic situation. The carriers are requiring registration for long codes, actually for every type of phone number, where previously they didn't require it. So there's a lot of confusion. We are definitely through the toughest part of 10DLC registration. It's been happening for about 1.5 years, and some things are worked out, but it is required. So that's the downside. It kind of takes a little to set up. It's confusing. The upside is you get very high throughput for very low cost, especially if you're a C3, right? So where short codes start at 100 messages per second, now long codes, once you register with 10DLC, you're getting about 120 messages per second, which is very, very fast. You're going to be able to get all your messages out there very quickly, which is kind of concerns that we always get at Twilio. I have a big list. How fast can I get this broadcast out? One last thing to talk about here. A short code is really, really good, and what might push you in that direction versus a long code or a toll-free. Short codes are very, very good in media, right? So if you're advertising and asking people to text in from TV, radio, print, press releases, podcasts, rallies, live events, things like that. If you say, hey, take out your cell phone, and if you want to support our organization, text join to 12345. That seems to work better and is smoother than if you say text join to 202-576-3122. You know what I mean? It's just easier with that 5 or 6 digit number for real world calls to action coming in. But yeah, we will go through more questions here. I mentioned the confusion with 10DLC. The good news is if you're a 501c3, It's a very clear path. You're going to register as a nonprofit and you're going to choose charity as your use case. While we have a second, it gets very confusing with a lot of options and words, but 10DLC means essentially you're going to register who is sending the text messages, the organization. You're going to register what you're sending, and that's called a campaign, right? Is how they do it. And sometimes when they talk about who is sending the messages, they're talking about a brand registration, right? And that's it, right? That's all that's happening behind the scenes. There's so many different variations based on how things are set up. But if you're a 501c3, you're registering as a nonprofit, you're registering a charity campaign. Those are the only choices you have unless you're doing emergency notifications. And so it's very simple, straightforward, at least in terms of your options. Oh, clicking wrong button. Cool. Last but not least, in terms of topics, is message compliance. This, again, can be very complicated. There's a lot here. I'm sending a guide. I have a screenshot of it in a second, but we're sharing like the full resources. But what's really important to know is the top three things are, number one, people need to opt in for text messaging, right? And they have to specifically say, yes, you can text me, right? It can't just be like, oh, they gave us their number somewhere, so we're going to text them a marketing message, right? You want people to opt in and say, yes, you can text me, and that's okay, right? You want to manage opt-out. So when someone says, stop texting me, you want to respect that. If you keep texting them, you will get in hot water with the carriers, and that kind of those compliance issues will flow through Twilio, right? And then last but not least, again, the big chunks here, there's a full document, but the big chunk is the content of the message. So there's some like fairly simple rules. You want to identify yourself, who's sending the text, right? You just don't want to say, hey, can you give us money? And the person's like, I don't even know who this is, right? So you want to say, hey, this is XYZ organization. Here's what we're doing, things like that, versus, random sort of incoming messages. And then you want to tell people things like, it's called the required text in text messaging, things like text stop if you'd like to opt out, text help for information on the sender and things like that. And then there's some like things you've probably seen, message and data rates may apply. You want to include the stuff in the messages. And if you're not identifying yourself or you're not including those like required texts in the message, you might get flagged for compliance tickets and have to like respond to that and add it in. So all very simple, but the big things are get consent before you're texting people, respect opt-outs, and then like have the right content in your messages. And like I mentioned, we are providing Engaging Networks a full guide for messaging compliance, and they can share that with you, or we can share it. But it's a lot, but again, just follow the high level rules. Last but not least, partnering. So I'm part of Twilio.org. This is our social impact organization. And we have like people that have worked for nonprofits and in social impact that kind of understand, the space and kind of how nonprofits think about things and how they work. And so we have a special team for that. We have products and then funding. So products is the one listed here is Impact Access. So when you sign up for Twilio, sign up for Impact Access along with that, right? You can follow this link if we share the deck, or you can just Google it. And that gives you discounts right from the start and $500 in your Twilio account to be able to start getting phone numbers and sending messages right away without having to worry about budget, right? And $500, I think, gets you about 80,000 text messages, right? So it's substantial there. The other products we have are just things that make it easier for nonprofits. And what that means is, that 10DLC registration for charities, that was something we went and pushed for because the carriers were thinking about business use cases and businesses and how they do things. And so we kind of made a path for nonprofits, C3 specifically, on how they could get kind of like special treatment from the carriers with that. Last but not least is funding. We will fund projects that are interesting and valuable and impactful around communications. And so this is, you can't use your funding to pay for Twilio, but if you're building something innovative and interesting that uses Twilio, we will fund some projects. It's every year it sort of changes how it works, but you can reach out to me directly if you have questions about that, and I will take care of them. I will answer them.
Michael, can you please stay on that slide you were just on? Or do questions? Thanks. Perfect. Cool. So I got a bunch of questions for you.
Okay.
All right. As you have questions, just go ahead and pop them into the Q&A so we can kind of monitor them there. And in case we need to do any follow-up, it's easier to track them. So the first one from Brian, can you talk more about the carrier filtering that you highlighted when you were showing that table in the US?
Yeah, carrier filtering is when the carriers like block the message. So filtering happens at a few different levels. I have an Android. My phone stops unwanted text messages. I never see them. I don't know if the iPhone has it, but I assume they will soon. So that's one form of filtering. The carriers might filter messages if, for instance, you send a message to a bunch of people and many people reply and report it as spam. They may like look at your traffic differently and filter it based on that they think it's unwanted messaging, right? Twilio also has filtering if we think that, right? Like we see something that appears fraudulent from someone that just signed up 15 minutes ago is trying to send a million messages or something like that. We have filtering there. So with the with this chart, each number type has a different, they all have different registration processes that are different. The short code has the most complex and the biggest, what's the word I'm looking for? The meatiest, the most requirements for registration. It takes the longest. So if you sign up for a short code, it's like a more trusted channel all the way up the chain from the carriers because you've gone through the deepest registration and you've been vetted the most, right? So deliverability, there's less filtering there because it's a more trusted sort of sender number. But with all of this, there's registrations everywhere. If you're getting good consented numbers, traffic, filtering should be minimal. And that's the type of stuff.
It's a lot like, yeah, and it's a lot like SPF, DKIM, DMARC on email, right? Like having, if you're crossing all those T's and dotting all those I's and doing that kind of work, you're going to end up in a place where you're not going to be having those, carrier filter issues. And it's just all about like balancing those things and making sure you're registering in all the places that you need to be registering. So, all right, from Case, with short codes, can you use more than one keyword? Any impact on price with multiple keywords? This is more on our side, I feel like. And the answer is no. I mean, you set up keywords. I'm going to be doing a walkthrough of that here inside the Engaging Networks platform to kind of show you how keywording works, but there's no additional cost to using like donate and advocate and donates and all those different things. That's all kind of handled on our end of it.
Yep. So yes, I agree. So the answer is you can't have multiple keywords, it sounds like. And that's especially good. Real simple examples for multiple languages. So we would do back in the day, it was text justice, text justicia, right? Sign up for the English list, sign up for the Spanish list and the way in. I will say shared short codes used to be allowed. The carriers no longer allowed shared short codes. So you will have to get your own dedicated short code, which isn't what you were asking, but it is tangentially related.
Yep. For obtaining consent, if someone gave you their mobile number, would you be able to send a one-off text requesting consents? No. I'd say Michael and I are not lawyers.
No. The answer is you have to they have to know, giving you their phone number, in the process of signing up to receive text messages, right? They have to know they gave you their phone number to receive text messages, right? Definitely and this is where it gets like a little lines drawn in a few places, but for marketing communications, for asking to take action, any broadcast campaign communications, you have to specifically get the phone number for those purposes before you can send a single text. Where things get a little more detailed, I should say, is if like, oh, my dentist, right? I give them my phone number and they tell me at the desk, we're going to text you, and they want to send me an appointment reminder. Like that's where it's like, you don't need the expressed written consent the way you do for a marketing or promotional campaign. And that's all in the guide we'll be sharing.
Kelly, this kind of rolls into your question, which in terms of marketing consent, do you have to have an explicit opt-in checkbox on your page, or does a disclaimer under an optional mobile field on your page cover this?
I believe both of those work. Oh, sorry. No, I believe that'll be in the guide.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be in the guide. And importantly, like check with your legal team. Like they're going to do a risk analysis for you and let you know kind of what, kind of works for that. So
I will say though, like the legal teams, yes, but the Twilio documentation will have that like per country, and like it's in our user agreement. So the legal teams, like, yes, it's always good to say that. But they will probably just look at our information at some level. Wait, one more thing. Sorry, one more thing.
Please.
It's not as much a legal question, right? It's more carrier policy, because the legal TCPA is nobody's going to be arrested for it, right? Although you could be sued, I guess, right? But that's where it gets like very, very confusing in terms of how it's all done.
Yeah.
So the documents we have are pretty good, and yes, run them by your lawyers.
Any recommendations for cell phone number acquisition or e-appends? Any kind of cleanup? Is that a service that Twilio offers, or is that something outside of your remit?
Well, so that's a good one. You know, phone number acquisition, it's like, and I don't know how you'll cover it, Ben, but add the phone number field and the checkbox or the language that says enter your phone number if we can text you. Do that now, right? And just start building your list on your donation forms, your petitions. Do that now so that when you decide, yes, we want to start sending texts, you're like, all right, well, let's see how many people have been giving us their phone number while we're making this decision, right? So collect phone number where you're collecting other information. If you do have media campaigns, again, social, yes, probably, but you know, TV for sure. If you're doing live events, if you're doing podcasts, if you're doing, you know, videos, even like YouTube stuff, like put text join to 12345, right? And this is a little confusing stat, and we found this a long time ago, but I suspect it's still true. From a TV commercial, more people will text in and give you their email address then will go to that website and give you their email address. Now, overall, more people are going to your website already and giving you their email address. But just from any discrete, specific call to action in the real world, text messaging is generally a faster and more direct like response channel than going to the web, even on their phone, and kind of filling out that form. But yeah, you want to include it in what you're already doing, essentially. Give people that on-ramp.
Great. And then from Victoria, does Twilio offer... Oh,
sorry, one more. The e-appends. We have a product called Lookup. And what Lookup will do is you can put in phone numbers and it'll tell you this is a mobile phone, this is a landline, right? But again, even if you have these mobile phones, if you don't have consent, you don't want to be texting them.
Victoria, you asked, does Twilio offer one-to-one texting? And if so, does it have the same opt-in requirements as one-to-many texting? So this is actually on the engaging network side of things, and we'll be chatting about that at the end of the webinar. So stick around for that because we do have an update there. And then we have one last question. I'm just going to read the whole thing to you, Michael. I don't quite understand it, but maybe you will. I know we were talking about texting, but I don't understand how integration with other channel APIs work. Could some explanation be given about those? Is there a way to Facebook message, Twitter, WhatsApp, et cetera, your subscribers? I feel like this is not quite the question for this webinar. This is more of like a software development on our side, kind of omni-channel work within the platform, but I wasn't sure if you had anything to add here.
Yeah, it could be. You know, so all those APIs are available from Twilio. I don't think Engaging Networks has built the capability to do a WhatsApp message, but you could, right? You could add that. And a lot of times, like really what people are looking to do is, you know, like Facebook Messenger has their own API, but what you might come to Twilio for is, hey, there's a crisis in Europe, right? And refugees and things like that. We want people to be able to like WhatsApp in, and then, but they're going to tell us their WhatsApp, and then we could also text them and kind of bring in multiple channels into multiple conversations, but manage it all from like a case standpoint or from a, you know, crisis response standpoint. So we allow you to like kind of get all of your channels into one like technical object, so that, for instance, if I'm a patient at a hospital, web chatting with a nurse, and then I need to send a picture, we can move to text message, and then we need my, you know, dependent or my translator to be in that conversation. All of that can actually work. So that's kind of those more advanced things is where that happens.
And that'd be a question to chat with Twilio about as well, for sure. On something like that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you know, the hey, we want to send messages through Twitter is like, maybe Engaging Networks wants to build that, like direct messages. Maybe they want to go directly to Twitter, or maybe if it's part of a whole thing, you want to come directly to Twilio and talk about complex stuff.
Great. Cool. You want to flip up your last slide here? But yeah, thank you so much for the first half of this, for giving us a breakdown of Twilio. Folks can, we'll be sure to send Michael's email out to everybody in case you want to get in touch with him. Anything else you wanted to plug here at the end?
One
Michael,
more thing
before we switch to Engaging Network?
one more thing. Twilio is designed to be super easy to get started and very Googleable, right? So like, if you ask me a specific question, chances are I'm going to Google it and like send you the link back. Like that's kind of how it works. So, we want to get you guys all the guides like in advance, like here's how to do it and things like that. We're definitely happy to like answer questions and stuff like that, but definitely give it a Google first, because like everybody just overwhelmed and it'll take a few days to get the answer, where if you type it in Google, we're going to be the first result. Our SEO is like great.
Yeah, thank you so much. So we're going to pivot over to the platform. If you didn't catch what was on the slide there, I did put it into the chat. If you want to kind of, that's fine. If you kind of want to participate in the next section here, you can text ENCC23 to 667-213-6089. You can see what Michael was saying there. The 10 digits versus if I just had 5 digits would be a bit easier, but it's there in chat. Again, you just kind of want to play along with what we're going to be looking at next. So I'm going to be taking over. I'm going to be hopping directly into the platform. All right, so I'm just going to be working out of the Engaging Networks platform. And so I have a little list here of things. So again, looking right from the chat, if you didn't have a chance yet, go ahead and text in. And if you did that, what you should have gotten is you should have gotten a response. If everything's working correctly, you would have gotten a response. And that's actually a keyword. And that's what we're going to start today with when we're looking in the platform. So what you did is you are taking part in this keyword campaign. And so we're just going to hop in here and take a look at it and see what happens. So again, if you texted ENCC23 to that phone number, you should have gotten this text message. So I did it, and I can confirm that I actually got the text message. So it worked as it was supposed to. And so this is actually a scavenger hunt that we're going to be doing at ENCC Toronto next week, but I thought I could just reuse it here. And so I just wanted to walk you through what you're seeing here on this page. So first off, you're seeing the keyword up here in the top left. So that's the actual keyword that you texted in, so ENCC23. This is a sign up. And so what it does is it is going to sign people up for a specific opt-in that we will select. I then have a message here. Hello, Intrepid Explorer. You're officially in the ENCC Toronto Hunt. Stay tuned for your next clue. Each clue will be one word. Simply text it to this number in all caps and you'll receive the next step. So that's what this looks like here. And then you can see it appended opt out with stop. So that's some of that best practice language that Michael was talking about that we have included here. We have this nice GIF that we have of Mr. Baggins here running away from the Shire. Our status is live, so we can be live or inactive. We have 2 senders in this account, so we're using the EN Twilio account 04. I have this nice little checkbox right here, and that's what it actually automatically includes, that opt out with stop. So that way, as an end user, I don't even have to remember to type that in. I can just click that and it'll automatically include it. And then what's going to happen here is the supporter will be automatically opted in to opt-in mobile. So that happened as soon as someone sent this in. So if you were participating, you would have gotten opt-in mobile is what you would have seen. And that's tied to this specific phone number, the 667 number. And then we also decided to mark supporters as having taken action in this page, the ENDCC scavenger hunt, right? And so again, this is just a way that we're going to be utilizing this to do some follow-up work with. So we wanted them opted in to our mobile, and we wanted to have them marked as having taken action. I could also add another action. So if I wanted them to be opted into, well, they're automatically, yeah, if I wanted to have them opted into SMS mobile as well, I could include that as a part of this. So that's really the basics here on how keywording works, right? So what we're doing is we are allowing you to set up different keywords. So you can see in this account, there are a whole bunch of keywords that are set up: donate, fall, foreign, kanji, accredited. So we have all sorts of auto replies. So For the most part, this account is used for the scavenger hunts that we do at our in-person conferences, which is why there's lots of words like Artscape, because that's where the conference is going to be. But you can see you can use this for all sorts of things. And so there are two main things that people do when it comes to a keyword. So the first is the sign up. So that's the one that if you are participating that you would have signed up for. The other one is an auto reply. So if we click into here, so if you text accredited, so again, if you are playing along at home on your computer, you can, or on your phone, you can text accredited back to, that picture of Bilbo Baggins running, and you should get this. If everything is working correctly, which I tested it earlier and it was, you're actually going to get this, sent to you, right? So this is a auto reply. So we are sending, in this case, an auto reply back to the person who texted in. And I just want to show you how easy it is to build one of these. So we're just going to create a keyword right now. We're going to create the keyword Twilio. It's going to be an auto reply, and it's going to be pretty basic. It's just going to be click this link to learn more about Twilio's impact access program. So then all I'm going to do is I'm going to go here to impact access. I'm going to copy this over. I'm going to drop it in. Boom. I'm going to save that. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to make sure I select the right thing, have my opt-in, click save. Go over to Twilio 1. You can see it's marked as inactive. I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to make it live. Save that. And so now, again, for any of you playing along at home, if you text Twilio, Twilio, on your cell phone, you are going to get that message that I just created, and it's going to give you that link right to that Twilio's Impact Access Program page, right? So it's that easy. So that took, I don't know, 2 minutes. I tested it earlier, to make sure that it worked. But that's how easy it can be to create these auto reply type structures, when you're trying to, manage how you're engaging with your supporters in new ways. So that's keyword. So there's auto replies and there are signups. So a couple questions coming in. From Rachel, are keywords case sensitive? And that is something that I'm going to let float out there. There's a bunch of Engaging Network staff that are on the call. Someone wants to grab that question. I actually don't know the answer to that question. But Rachel, we will be sure to get that for you. The next from Tom, will you be able to donate to text donate? So, text donate to $10 and that will automatically donate $10. So, for the most part, people have moved away from that kind of text to donate, where then like the carrier would then charge you on your Verizon bill, and then that money would get passed over like to the charity. So people are moving away from that kind of model, and instead having people go, to landing pages where you're able to fill it out. So that way you actually capture all of that data information. What we are looking at for a future release is something that would allow for upgrades and recurring gift management via sending messages via SMS. But we're not there yet, but it's something that we're exploring, that we're looking at, and that Michael has actually been giving us some nice some coaching on, kind of how that could end up looking like. So the next thing I wanted to give you a quick walkthrough here is what it actually looks like to set up a Twilio account inside of Engaging Networks. So you're going to need to be a super admin to do this. And under your account settings and under extensions, you're going to find Twilio. So in this case, you can see we have our 2 Twilio accounts here. But if you needed to make a new one, you would just click Connect Accounts. And then Twilio is going to provide you with a Twilio account SID and a Twilio authorized token and a message service ID. So these are going to be, the information that you're going to want to fill in that you get from Twilio as part of that sign up process with Twilio, right? And so the idea here is you sign up with Twilio, you get this information. That's where you're able to kind of make a determination on short code, long code, throughput, kind of how all those different, tweaks, and that allows you to really, be very specific in terms of what you're looking for when it comes to your SMS delivery. And then you're going to come in here, you're going to plug all that information in. And then once you plug it in, so this is what it looks like once it's kind of all plugged in here. You can have some basic settings that we have. So I'm just going to walk you through these settings here real quick. So this is your opt-out text. This is what this can be appended to outbound text messages. So reply, stop to unsubscribe, right? So pretty straightforward. Actually, let's use the account that we were using earlier. Here you go. So this is what you saw, that opt out with stop. That's what you saw automatically appended when I clicked that box, right? So it tries to make it really easy. So that way you have that there. We can also have words that will automatically trigger a subscribe to that opt-in question. So in this account, we have subscribe, start, and unstop. And then this is the message that someone is automatically going to get as part of that. We also have words that will automatically trigger an unsubscribe. So cancel, end, quit, stop, stop all, unsubscribe. So this allows you, and you can see these are all just comma separated. So you can add as many kind of keywords that you need to add in here, and then you can have a response message. And then we also have this additional one, that if you want to have people look for help or a reason why they're receiving text. So if they were to respond with help, they would get this response: reply stop to unsubscribe, message and data rates may apply, right? So this allows you to kind of manage some of that high level auto replies from the actual, Twilio piece of the integration to make sure that you're staying in compliance across the board. Michael, is there anything that you wanted to add in here before we shift off from this screen?
This is good. The only thing I did want to do is explain messaging services. That's a little confusing. So you have your Twilio account number, authentication tokens, like a password, right? You don't really share that with anybody. The messaging service, so you'll buy a phone number, and the messaging service is sort of like a folder for your phone numbers, right? And you can have multiple phone numbers in there. So for instance, if you're doing, an event in Florida and one in New York, you can put a New York number and a Florida number. And then sort of when you send from that messaging service, it will like match the right number for the right person, right? If it'll match it and keep it sticky. So that's the most confusing thing, but everything else, yeah, looked good. And I think pretty straightforward.
Perfect. I had a question from Jared. When you opt out, does it remove you from the segment or simply flag not to receive further messages, or will it block all messages from the sender? So the way that SMS is built is someone has to be explicitly opted in with a Y value in order to get the message. So if someone were to unsubscribe, they would no longer qualify to receive an SMS message from the Engaging Networks platform. So it's not like how email audience creation works, where you don't necessarily have to start with an opt-in when you're building your audience. You can start in a myriad of ways. For SMS, you have to have, like, there's not even a way to not include kind of someone that isn't opted in because of the way that the structure is designed. It's going to look to check to make sure that person has a Y there.
And when someone replies stop, then do you uncheck that box or take that Y off of their profile? Do you know?
Yeah, so they end up getting a no value for that opt-in.
When they reply stop, though, you're managing that opt-out. Okay, great.
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah.
That's what you want to do. Just confirming that.
Correct. And then one from Brian here. Do these case words trigger on starts with, or is it total exact match? If my keyword is stop and someone texts stop messaging me, will that trigger the opt-outs? I believe they're going to want to text stop to get something back from you. All right, so let's actually pop over to the other tool. So we looked at keywording. Let's look at broadcast. So I have one built here, and I thought that'd be an easy way for us to look at it. So when we go to build a SMS message, and it also supports MMS, just to be clear here, you're going to give it a name, primary ask, just like always, and then we're going to select SMS, and we're going to select the sender that that's going to come from. We're then going to choose our audience. So you can see here, my audience, and this audience builder looks like it anytime you're creating an email in the new marketing tool, it's all the exact same place. So then here, when you're actually building the message, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create this core message. And so this is our core message here. And so what you can see here is we have our SMS message, and then we have this attached image. And so we have an image up here with our sponsors, and then we have this message that people are going to get. And so this is how it looks when you're building. So it's a lot like just building an email where you have, the message area, you have an image area, you can add an image if you wanted to. And it's pretty straightforward as far as that goes. So trying to get this real, easy to build SMS message here. And then you can split test it if you wanted to split test it. You can add a segment if you wanted to add a segment. Those aren't things that we're really delving into today, but those are all available just like they are for email campaigns as well. So as far as testing goes, let's take a look here. Testing looks the exact same. I did want to flag one thing here. In order for testing to work inside the platform, this user, so ben@engagingnetworks.net, so this is the user in this account, right? Like I exist as like a supporter inside this account. I have to have my mobile number here inside the platform, and it has to be constructed in that, +1 +44. It needs to be constructed in, that IE model, for this all to work. So that's one thing to flag here to make sure you're collecting phone numbers in the right in the right structure. We do talk about that, broadly throughout the support and kind of everywhere. So then if I send a test message, it's going to find this supporter, ben@engagingnetworks.net. It's going to look and it's going to send a message, to my cell phone. And so if I did all this right, what you can see here, I'm just going to stop sharing my screen here real quick. And there we go. So what you can see here is I got, it's going to start. There you go. Oh, faded in and out. There you go. So you can see here, I got the message, right there that you just saw. So that's the test message. So I can see, that looks right. I have the image, I have the text, and it's that easy, right? So it makes it really easy to test those messages, just like what we have testing for email as well. So I've tested it. I'm happy with it. I think it looks good. I'm going to continue to testing. So this looks the exact same as it looked for sending an email. It lets you know you're ready to send. You can send it to schedule, or you can send it immediately, or you can schedule it. You can include supporters, or you can not include supporters in marketing automation. And something you'll see here, I'm in test right now. So that's why you are seeing this. This isn't in production, but we are adding seed list back in to sends. Right now, you can only send a seed list as part of tests. I did want to flag that is coming back in the May release that we have for the big update for phase 2 of marketing tools. So that's the very quick skinny on kind of how it looks working inside the platform for both broadcast and SMS. If you have questions, go ahead and drop them into the Q&A. I'm actually going to pass it over to Dan Shimshak. He's our Senior Director of Product. He wanted to let you know about some items that are coming down the pike a little bit later this year when it comes to texting. Dan?
Yes, so I just want to say thanks very much for joining, and for Michael and Ben sharing what we currently have on offer. So there was a question about peer-to-peer texting. So in the texting world, there's sort of the 3 core buckets. There's the bulk sending, there's the keywording, and then could be the peer-to-peer texting that supporters might be texting on an ad hoc basis. So for example, if someone did text back going like, I didn't subscribe to this, could you opt me out? I'm trying to what we did see, someone did a test send, and then we saw supporters replying back with, hey, if this is you, I will donate. This is a great cause. So being able to engage supporters outside of keywords and the post-send of broadcasts. And that's where our message inbox management tool is going to be coming in towards the end of the year. So we're looking at being able to start building the backend services with the Q3 with a sort of a Q4 release on this. But this would allow you to be able to see ad hoc tests coming in and then be able to reply directly to supporters. and see how they are doing profiling, batch replying, etc. So this is sort of a comp from our roadmap about how this could potentially look.
Great, thanks so much, Dan. All right, I'm gonna jump back in. Celine had a question. So can we create a marketing automation using SMS? So we've actually had it in the platform for about 2 years. So here I'm inside of the marketing automation workflow. Right over here, I can drag over a SMS, can edit it from here. You can see we haven't updated the marketing automation tools yet to have the new kind of UI that you're seeing over in marketing tools, but it works the same way. You have a name of this SMS, you have your text message here, you can insert campaign links, you can insert external links, and you can insert supporter information. Once you can also, if you wanted to that's okay. You can send SMS and email. So this is really neat. So you can create both a text message and create an email. And then you can determine, should you send a text if available or an email if not, or should you send a text and an email, right? So you have the ability to create both of those things. That also exists in the broadcast. You'll notice that you can send an email, you can send a text, or you can send an email and text. You can build that as a campaign, right? So there's a whole lot of options there, when you're trying to figure out how you want to utilize SMS. And then one question that I got that I answered, I chatted my answer, but just to kind of show folks, because we still have 3 minutes. If we look here, I can, this is the message I was working on earlier. So I can just create a split right here. I'm not going to do that because we're actually going to use this in a few days. I don't want to mess this up because we've already done some work on this. But essentially we can add a split, to this just like you do for an email. So Jared, I think you had asked that question. So for the most part, that is the overview, trying to give you the, technical deep dive as far as Twilio as far as our platform goes. In the last few minutes, if you have any questions, throw them in. I do have a couple more pieces of information. So next week at ENCC Toronto, M&R is doing a masterclass on getting started with SMS from a strategic perspective. We will be repackaging that as quickly as possible and getting that back out to everybody. It'll be posted on the learning page for marketing tools. And then in the month of May, we are going to be working our way through office hours. So this is something that we did back in February, where we did office hours and got some really good feedback on kind of the structure and creating it. And so the idea is to do a set of office hours throughout the month of May, and I can share those with you as like a sneak peek because you're right here, and I can, because why not? So what we're going to be doing in May is, you can see here, we're going to be doing broadcast texting and keywording on the week of May 9th, the week of May 16th. We have a new marketing tools email template coming out that we want to show off to people. So we're going to be doing that on the 23rd, the 25th, and the 30th. And then we're going to come back on June 1st and do another office hours. The office hours are going to be very similar to this webinar, right? It's an opportunity for you to come in, work with a small group of people, ask questions of Engaging Networks support staff and Engaging Networks account managers about SMS, how to get it deployed. So if you have, questions, if you have concerns, things like that, you can bring them to those office hours. And it's a nice opportunity to come in and chat with folks. And the last thing that I have, if you're wondering about pricing on any of this from the Engaging Network side, so we have a flat pricing model. So if you have less than 500 SMS opt-ins, so you just want to play around with it, it is forever free. So it is just free for if you have under 500 SMS opt-ins. So if you want to bring a few over to test it out inside the platform, we are not going to charge you for that on our set of things. Then if you have up to 50,000 SMS records, it's going to be $2,300 or whatever the equivalent is in your country. And if you have more than 50,000 SMS records, it'll be $4,600. as a flat rate. So it won't scale or anything like that. It'll just be, 2 flat rates depending on how many people you have in your account. So if you want to get set up, reach out to your account success manager. You'll be getting some information about us. I want to thank Michael for being here from Twilio. Thank you so much for giving us that technical backend. Dan, thank you so much for coming in and doing a sneak peek of the roadmap. Austin, thanks for helping getting all this set up. Really appreciate your time. And thank you all of you for attending. I hope you all have a great afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you are, and we will talk to you later. Bye, everyone. Thanks so much.